You're watching PowerNation. Today on Carcass, we address some fueling issues that may give us some problems on the track.
We also get started on our exhaust system and see if we can get this thing fired up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Carcass. Now we're making leaps and bounds on our E46 BMW race car. We managed to bend up and install a killer roll cage inside here, and we have the LSN 5-speed swapped in. And today we're going to be tackling something that could be a potential problem out on the track, and that's something to do with the fuel system. Now, the placement of the stock BMW tank is perfect in the middle here. And what that will do is give our car some really good track manners when we're out on the track, but it does have one downfall. The way that it's designed is the top of the tank itself is pretty flat, but on the bottom it actually has kind of a hump in the middle, and that's to allow the drive shaft to pass underneath it and have some up and down movement. Well, really what that does is creates a left and a right side to the fuel tank. So as you're going around the racetrack and you have a hard left or right hand turn, it can actually pull fuel away from the pump side here, kind of keep it over on the driver's side, and that will starve the fuel pump side, lowering your fuel pressure, lowering your horsepower, and that's how you're going to lose some races. But we do have a simple solution for that. What we're going to end up doing is going to be installing this M series or M3 style baffle around the fuel pump. And what that's going to do is just give us a little more fuel. So as we're kind of making these big sweeping turns, we can kind of hold a little more over here, wait till we get back out on that straightaway, keep our fuel pressures up, stay in that horsepower range, and hopefully win some races. Now, the pump itself is in a very easy location to get to. It's right underneath this cover here, so we'll get that out of the way, get the pump out of the way. Get the locking ring off of here. We'll try to pull the pump out of the way. There we go. So the way that this works is currently right now we have a tube, like a siphon tube that runs from the driver's side over here to the passenger side of the tank. And that tube comes out at the bottom of the stock sump area that's in the tank already. So what this does is takes that tube from the bottom here and it's going to put it up top and fill up this extra little bowl. And at the bottom of this bowl, there's two little holes that's going to allow the fuel to drain out kind of slowly and keep the sump that's down in the tank currently kind of covered with fuel, keeps our fuel pump covered up with fuel as well. This is a very simple solution to keep us out on the track longer, and it was pretty darn cheap too. Trick here is getting it to sit in. Oh, that's gonna go on that side. Oh, perfect. And then get the hose connected. Now they don't fit super tight in here, but that's all it needs to do. And then the fuel pump will eventually kind of come down in here and put pressure down on this so it doesn't move so much. But yeah, that's as simple as that needs to be. Again, for the fuel pump that we're running, this is a stock replacement fuel pump. The 3-liter that was in this car called for about 50 to 55 PSI, and that's more than enough to run the Fitech Rebel EFI system we have sitting on top of our LC9. Again, best part about all this, stock replacement, so it goes right back where it came from and uses the same connections. All right, so one last thing on the fuel side of things. Since we ditched all of the stock wiring in the BMW, we're gonna have to find a way to command the new fuel pump to turn on. And what we're gonna be using is a PDM. This is the same thing that we ran in the road course Camaro, and it should work perfectly in our BMW. So I've got a little test set up here because I need to find the 2 pins or the 2 wires that I need to apply power and ground to. And I think I have that figured out, so we'll just do a little test here. Yep. So if I take those 2 pins and kind of transfer that over to the stock pigtail that we kept from the wiring, looks like the brown wire is going to be our ground, and this white wire with the blue trace is going to be our positive. So I'll label those, be able to transfer those over to the PDM, and when we get ready to fire this thing up, should work perfectly. Stick around, we dive into our differential to improve performance on the track. Hey guys, welcome back. Well, as you can see, we've got the car up here on a different lift because it's a little too small to fit on the other lift in the shop here, in hopes to tackle a bunch of stuff underneath the car. And now that we have the engine and transmission installed, we have to make sure that when all that power comes back here that both rear tires spin, and that's currently not the case. So what we're gonna be doing here is pulling out this rear differential, getting it over on the table. We're gonna be putting a couple pieces inside of here, making sure that both these rear tires spin. That actually looks pretty fresh. Somebody's must have been in here recently. All right, so if you want to hold the back, I'll try to get the bolt out of there. And then we'll try to weasel it down. Okay. Can't do much because the pinion's going to rotate. How you doing?
I just need to reposition my hand.
Got it?
Yep.
All right, to the table. All right, so now that we have the differential out, I'm gonna take the cover off the back. We have to get rid of these axle adapters here, and then we'll get down to the meat and potatoes. Using a hammer and a punch, we'll knock the adapters free. Once removed, we can access the C-clips that hold in the bearing races, get those out of the way, and remove the diff from the housing. All right, guys, well, we have the rear differential all apart, and I did take the parts and pieces over to the parts washer and cleaned everything up so we didn't have to work with a greasy mess. Now, we're going to be working down here in the spider gear area, and we're gonna be installing these locking plates from racing diffs, and what that's gonna do is just apply pressure to the 2 outside spider gears, locking them up and giving us full traction when we're out on the track. Now, to get started, I need to get the centering pin out of the way, but before I can do that, I gotta get the ring gear out of the way. Okay, so for the plates, I have to just kind of assemble these. It's got these 4 little springs. Put the top on, then we gotta head over to the vise, compress that down, and add these little blocks. All right, so I got everything all lubed up. Now all we gotta do is just set her inside. Line up the hole. We'll take it apart. Tell you one thing, that was terrifying. Now, tolerances are extremely tight here, so it is okay to use a dead blow like this to get the pin in. And then we just tighten down this little set screw, make sure there's a little bit of thread locker on there. And that pretty much buttons up the install of the limited slip. Now, one thing to note, from the factory, BMW uses this little snap ring or C-clip down here in the housing, and that keeps this little centering pin into place. Now, those C-clips can fail, and that will allow that pin to kind of slide around and get into your pinion, and you definitely don't want that. So one thing that Racing Diffs does recommend is you just take a little punch here and you kind of peen around the housing. You just create some little dimples on both sides, and that will keep that pin in place in the event that that little C-clip fails. And we definitely don't want anything like that, so we will be peening this. Now, beyond that, we are gonna end up putting our ring gear back on here. We'll get all of this set back into the housing. We'll get it back up in the car.
Coming up, we upgrade our master cylinder for better response while braking. We're making some good progress on our BMW, and now it's time to start on the brake system. The biggest change that we're making is going to a full manual setup. And why would we want to do this in the first place? Well, in a track and high performance setting, you want to have as consistent brake feel as possible. And in a vacuum boosted system, you might not have full assist at all times. So we went to Chase Bays and got this dual master cylinder, which is a full manual setup. We also had to change our pedals just a little bit. We went ahead and put on an E36 pedal, and Chase Bays sent us a new clevis to change the ratio so we could take full advantage of the manual brakes. So I just have to get this master cylinder through the firewall, and then we can install our pedals. The original firewall only had these two holes, so I went ahead and drilled these two other ones. And this thing goes in there no problem. After I reinstall the pedal, I'll go ahead and install the push rod. To go along with our master cylinder, we also have Chase Bays brake line relocation kit. This is going to be a great way to adapt everything together and also clean up the engine bay because we can get rid of all the stock hard lines. Something else we're going to be doing, and something we have done in the past, is use EBC's stainless steel brake lines. And we love these because they have identical routing to the OE lines, which means it's a true direct fit to our car. They have a lifetime guarantee against any faults or failures. And before we get these, every one is pressure tested, so we know we're getting a high quality product. Now, once we can get the car back up in the air, we can get rid of all the old stuff and install all these new nice parts.
Now, before this thing goes up in the air, we're gonna take care of a couple things underneath the hood to get this thing fired up. One of those being the radiator. Now, we got this one from Chase Bays, and it's designed to fit into an E46 chassis with an LS swap, or really any engine swap. It's got these two little tabs on it that fit in between the frame rails, and we already went ahead and welded on some mounts. So we'll go ahead and get this installed, and then at the end, we'll go ahead and put on the core support. The way that this all kind of falls together, the radiator sits right behind the core support, and we even welded on a couple tabs up here to kind of hold it into place. So this should work out perfectly, and we're one step closer to getting this thing fired up. We do have a couple more things to tackle on the BMW here, but it requires getting it up in the air. The oil pan itself is a tight fit in this chassis, and it makes it really hard to run a stock oil filter in the stock location. So we've got an oil filter relocation kit. It's all pretty basic, just a couple of lines and a little filter adapter that kind of just moves everything out of the way, keeps it away from the heat as well. So we're gonna go ahead and get this installed. Check one more thing off the list. Now we did end up making this little black bracket piece here, and we're actually just using the stock bolt holes where the AC compressor bracket bolted to. It just seems like a really good spot to put the filter. Plus, when we go to drain it, we'll be able to fall right on the ground in our drip pan and we won't make a huge mess. Now there is a specific way to plumb this in. The pan has it labeled in and out, and so does the adapter here. So we'll get our lines on, tighten it up. Now, to protect our investment that we have in all of our nice parts in our LC9, we're gonna be running a WIX filter. Now, WIX not only makes oil filters, they make air filters and fuel filters for your cars, your trucks, and commercial vehicles. And the media that's inside of here is 99% efficient at trapping dirt in your oils. There's a silicone anti-drain back valve that prevents dry starts, and its high capacity is ideal for dirt and dusty conditions like this thing's gonna see when we're out on the track. All right, that buttons that up. Now we'll move on to the next. Coming up, our BMW is almost ready to run.
We have a couple more things to check off the list, and then we'll be ready to fire it up. What's up, everybody? While the car has been in the air, I've started working on the exhaust. What we have so far is 3" from the collectors into a Y, and then we're just running 3" out the back. All pretty simple, just MIG welded stuff that we had laying around the shop. And now that we're in the back, it's time to put the muffler in, and we've got from Black Widow a 10" Widowmaker that should give us a nice sound once this thing fires up. I've got a couple more tubes to put in, and then this exhaust system will be finished. All right, we got the muffler in here. That's one more task done, just a few more things until we can fire it up.
With the bottom of the car pretty much buttoned up, it's time to check a couple more things off the list, and one of those is the battery. Now we're gonna be installing an Optima OrangeTop lithium-ion battery, same one that we ran in the Camaro. We're gonna put it back here in the stock location.
One of the last steps before we fire up our engine is getting some oil in it. And because we tore this thing down quite a ways and some of the parts were stripped completely of oil, we are going to prime it with our little tank sprayer. And for the oil itself, we're gonna go with Schaeffer's Supreme 9000. This is a synthetic 5W30 multi-grade gasoline engine oil that uses advanced performance additives and a viscosity index improver. This unique blend creates a longer lasting oil that withstands a higher heat range than conventional oil. This is super important for our engine since it will be used constantly at higher RPM operation and see higher temperatures than a standard street engine. Schaeffer's also uses friction modifiers, Micron Moly, and Penetro to plate metal surfaces, creating a slippery shield that prevents metal-to-metal contact, reducing friction and wear. Using Schaeffer's oil, we can expect durability and a long service life for our engine.
Now inside the car, we did do a very basic wiring job just so we can see if we can get the LC9 fired up. We are running a PDM from Switch Pros, kind of the same one we've run before. And the way that we wired this up, we just gotta turn the toggle switch on here, and then we're gonna use the PDM itself to turn on the ECU. And then we also have a digital oil pressure gauge so we can watch the vital signs along with our handheld from Phytech. So once Jimmy gives me the green light, we'll go ahead and push some buttons, see if this thing will fire up.
All right, go ahead.
All right, I will turn the ECU on. Do we have fuel pressure?
60 pounds.
Perfect. All right, let's see if it runs.
Nice.
There you go. We got oil pressure. Yeah.
Cool.
Oil pressure's reading. I think we got it.
Yeah, all right.
Runs pretty good. Shut her down. Sweet, that works.
Awesome. Well, that's a huge task to check off the list. We still have a ton of stuff to do on the inside and finish out the interior. We'll save that for another day. See you guys next time.
Wiring worked out really good in here, even though it's real basic, but it's enough to get it all fired up.
Well, we can tear it all back out now.
Right.
And finish whatever else we need to do.
Got a whole lot to do in more. So.